Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, and welcome back to the channel, and today it is time once again to talk about the state of Smite 2. I've made a ton of these videos, people in the scene have made a ton of these videos, it's a very hot topic at the moment, and I'm just going to get my thoughts out there about how the game is at the moment, what I think of it personally, what the stats are looking like, all that kind of stuff. And if you didn't know, most of my videos that I put out on the channel are actually like fully scripted. This one's not going to be that. I've got some notes here, but basically I'm going to be shooting from the hip in this video, just kind of talking about how I feel about the game. So if I do go off topic and go on tangents and stuff like that, just bear with me. I'm just going to be kind of like talking from the hip here. So first up, my first bullet point that I have here, I still believe the game is really good right now and it's only going to get better. The difference between the alpha weekends that we had like super early on and how the game is right now is absolutely immense. And honestly, I feel like a lot of the community like checked out in those early alpha weekends and haven't checked the game out, and maybe they're waiting for free to play or something like that, which we'll get into later. But it honestly amazes me that less people, like substantially less people, are playing the game right now than were in like the early alpha weekends. It's kind of insane. Obviously the hype in the early alpha weekends was there because people wanted to check out the game. It was brand new and everything, and now the game's been out a few months, people aren't really you know, checking it out anywhere near as much. And there are still issues in terms of, you know, playing the game 24/7. There's not really enough content there at the moment, which we'll get into later. But yeah, I do fundamentally believe the game is actually in a really good state right now. I think like the core gameplay is really good. There are still certainly some issues. I would say like probably like 40-40-20 in this regard. Basically 40% of the core gameplay experience of Smite 2 is better than Smite 1 in my opinion. Another 40% is like roughly on par with Smite 1, and I think about 20% is definitely worse than Smite 1. You know, there are some gods that feel really bad, there are some items that are just really boring, there are some aspects of the conquest map that aren't really working at the moment, especially like jungle pathing and stuff. But yeah, I think in general 40% is better, 40% is the same, 20% is worse. That's my general rough assessment in terms of like the core sort of like game feel, the core gameplay, just like playing a match of conquest, everything else aside in Smite 2. And yeah, I think the game is actually in a really good state right now, and I think a lot of people really just have checked out and aren't willing to play the game anymore until like free to play or whatever. And if you are one of those people that has checked out the game and is still watching content, still watching my channel, I do implore you to give the game another try if you have access to it, because the game is actually like immensely better than it was even a few months ago. Next up, the team are genuinely listening to feedback better than most studios do, and the rate at which they're adding gods is very promising. So we'll be at 34 gods next patch, and they've started adding 3 per patch now, and there's probably going to be an expected like dump of gods nearer to January, because if they're only adding 3 per patch and even patching every 2 weeks, we're probably not going to hit the 50 target by January. But with January having the LAN tournament and likely being the launch of free-to-play, I imagine they're going to have a really big patch plan for January that's sort of like akin to a season patch that we would have had in Smite 1. And so I think likely in that patch we're going to get, you know, a larger god offering than just 3. You know, maybe they'll have like 5 or 6 gods in that new patch or something like that, or they'll find a way to hit the target by January, and they're already on track to do that. So yeah, I think they're generally listening to feedback really well. The biggest complaint about the game was that the god variety is just not there. Every game kind of feels the same. You're playing against the same characters all the time, and already I'm feeling a massive improvement in that regard. You know, I've been streaming the game pretty consistently, which plug for my Twitch. I'll leave the link down below if you want to catch my live games of Smite 2 and ask me about the game, see what my feelings are in a more sort of long form format, where you can kind of directly ask me any questions you have about the game, you know, be that like informational or my thoughts on the game and whatnot. The link to my Twitch will be down below. We have a lot of fun on the streams over there. But yeah, I've been streaming the game pretty consistently, and there's definitely a feeling right now for me that the game has a lot more variety in terms of the gods being picked than it did, you know, even a few months ago. We've been getting them added, you know, 2 per patch every 2 weeks. Now they're moving up to 3 per patch every 2 weeks, and we'll probably get a big dump in January, as I said. And already, even just the difference of like the last few patches that have added maybe 10 gods or something, it's already made the game so much better in terms of variety, and also like the god picks in general have been better. Like some of the gods we got super early on, like Odin, Chak, Sodanos, Jingwei, like they're just so boring and really shouldn't have been there in place of gods like Ra and Thor and stuff like that. Like, it's crazy to me that Jingwei and Sodanos got added before Rama got added. Like, that's insane. The fact that Odin and Chak got added before like Hercules or Cuchulainn or King Arthur. Obviously we only have one of those at the moment, but like we have Amaterasu now. Sobek's a lot of fun in the game in my opinion. The +1 changes they've been doing are also great. That's kind of a different topic, but I've been really enjoying the +1 changes, and it does give me a lot of hope that some of the more problematic gods can be looked at a little bit better, because most of the +1 changes they've been doing I think have been really good. But at the moment, they're only adding gods that are sort of like pretty much complete in Smite 1 and are already really good designs, and all they're doing is like adding a little something extra, like the sub-execute or like Raz 2 and stuff like that. And I imagine a lot of the rest of the first 50 will probably be getting similar kind of changes. You know, they don't really need much. They've just got a little bit of extra things to make them feel a bit fresh in Smite 2. They don't have any like major kit problems that need fixing particularly. But yeah, as we start to add those gods that are a little bit more problematic, or maybe even just like the old gods that aren't really that fun, they could definitely add a lot more lot of those, and I have faith that they'll be able to do that because the +1 changes have been pretty good in terms of the god roster. In terms of after that, there's a lot of cool stuff coming in the pipeline after they reach the 50 gods target. Unfortunately, I can't talk about most of it. I know more than you guys do. I'm not allowed to talk about data mining, but if you do want to check out some of the stuff that's coming, you can check out the data mining that's been coming out for the last few patches. It's not entirely accurate. I do read the data mining. I'm just not allowed to talk about it. But yeah, some of the data mining is accurate, some of it is not. But there's a lot of cool stuff coming in the pipeline. And I think a lot of those changes can be implemented really quickly with how quickly they've been working on like adding the gods to the game. Like they've been going really fast with that. I think they're kind of getting used to the workflow of UE5 now. And I think once we reach the 50 gods target in January, they'll start pivoting to other aspects of the game. Because we've been really lacking in other content, you know, like conquest changes, new game modes like Joust and Assault. They've probably been delayed a little bit. New and reworked items, better homepage stuff and god pages and stuff, skins and cosmetics, all that kind of stuff. But once the push to 50 in January is complete, I think all those other aspects of the game will start getting the quick love that gods have been getting. You know, they've been really quick at responding to community feedback and saying that like we really need more gods in the game. And they pretty much put everything else about the game on the back burner, except maybe the core game feel, because that is kind of directly related to gods as well. But I think in terms of gods, they've done an amazing job. In terms of core game feel, they've done an amazing job over like the last few months. Not to get sappy, but full credit to the Smite 2 designers right now. I think they're doing an absolutely amazing job with what they've been given. You know, there've been a lot of layoffs. They're probably working under a lot of pressure to get this stuff out, and I think they're doing generally a pretty good job with it. But yeah, once we get to those 50 gods, a lot of those other aspects of the game will get some love. I know I've seen a lot of people saying they're waiting for Joust before they want to try the game. There's a lot of people just waiting for free to play in general. We haven't had really any meaningful conquest changes recently, but I believe there are some coming. So yeah, it's going to be super exciting. Once we do hit that push to 50, you know, getting the gods in the game is really important, but it's also going to be exciting to see some big changes to other like core aspects of the game to get them kind of on par or better than what you are offered in Smite 1 at the moment. And at that point, the game will be free to play. We'll have 50 gods in the game. We'll be getting all these other important changes. So I think at that point, probably a lot of the people that are still playing Smite 1 will move over because as I've said previously in many videos, Smite 1 is achieving like 3 times the player count of Smite 2 right now. And I think a large part of that is 1, free to play, and 2, lack of variety, and people don't want to check out the game again until free to play. I will say this again, I do think the game should have been delayed a year. I think that probably would have been best for the game. It should have been delayed. Year 11 should have continued on for Smite 1, even if it was, you know, not as crazy as like Year 10, for example. Year 10 had so much change. Year 11 could have just been more than it has been, but less than your typical year of Smite 1, and they just keep that going. They keep the SPL going. Obviously, I'm talking about this from an outside perspective. It's possible, you know, financially for the company, that just literally wouldn't be possible to keep Smite 1 running with a reasonable amount of updates, keep the SPL running, keep paying the players, while also trying to get Smite 2 into a good state. Because obviously, if they had delayed it a year, we wouldn't be where we're at right now in terms of Smite 2. The progress would have been nowhere near what we've got. Because 1, they wouldn't have got as much widespread community feedback about changing like the art direction, changing the gameplay feel, changing to like pivoting to adding more gods and stuff like that. They wouldn't have got that feedback. At least they wouldn't have got it as quickly. Ambassadors were still giving feedback on the game before it was even publicly available. So they would have still got that feedback, but it wouldn't have been anywhere near as immediate and anywhere near as prevalent. And also, of course, if they did want to keep Smite 1 running in a reasonable state, they wouldn't have been able to pull as many devs off of Smite 1 onto Smite 2, so we wouldn't have got as much development time. But even still, if Smite 2 could have released with like 30 gods instead of however many it released with, like 18 or something like that, it would have been so much better and just in a general better state. Like, it didn't have to be perfect, but if it had just released, you know, as it was maybe a couple of months ago at the end of this year, and that was like the first time anyone saw Smite 2, I think the general community perception to it would have been so much better. And we might not have been in this situation where a lot of people checked out the game in its super early phase and just kind of like checked out of the game, basically. You would have probably still had that because no matter what they did, Smite 2 would release in a worse state than Smite 1. Smite 1's been under development for 10 years. It's been a pretty much perfected formula. With Smite 2, they're changing a lot of things. They're completely rebuilding it from the ground up in a new engine. It was always going to be worse on its original alpha launch than Smite 1. But I think if they had delayed it a year, it could have been a little bit less worse, right? And people maybe would have checked out the game and sort of thought, oh, I see the potential here, rather than checking out the game and saying, oh my god, this is so bad, this is so much worse than Smite 1, I'm just going to go back to Smite 1 or I'm going to quit entirely. So yeah, I do think that would have helped. Whether it was possible, you know, internally, I don't know, I don't have that information, but I do feel like delaying the game a year and just keeping Smite 1 updated reasonably, you know, a little bit more than they've been doing in year 11, but not a full update year would have probably been best. I touched on this throughout, but likely a lot of players are waiting for free to play and a lot of players are on last gen consoles and they might upgrade at some point. So this is basically just related to the player numbers, which the player numbers speak for themselves on both games really, but especially on Smite 2. They've just been dropping precipitously. I think they've kind of hit a floor right now from what I've seen. I've been keeping a good eye on them, and Smite 2 seems to have hit a floor around like, you know, 2,000 players peak on like good days. And Smite 1's kind of hit a floor of around 6,000 players a peak on good days. So it does seem like players' numbers have leveled off. They're not dropping the same way they were sort of like earlier in the year when Smite 2 was in a worse state and people were leaving Smite 1 and stuff like that. So these do seem to have leveled off. But yeah, the player numbers are low. They speak for themselves. But I do think a lot of people are probably waiting for free-to-play to actually like jump into the game because they don't want to buy a Founders Pack to have access to a game that is worse than what they currently have access to. That's understandable. So I do feel like it's mostly a lot of the like hardcore Smite fans that are really playing Smite 2, sorry, consistently right now. Because if you're a more casual player and you just checked out the game, realized it wasn't really all that, and you're just kind of like waiting for free-to-play to maybe try it out again, you're just going to play Smite 1, and that's basically what we're seeing. That's why Smite 1 has 3 times the player count of Smite 2 right now. And yeah, in regard to last-gen consoles, I'm not a console gamer, so I don't know if this sentiment really applies, but I feel like at some point people are going to upgrade their last-gen consoles, even if it's not specifically for Smite 2. You know, at some point you are going to upgrade those things. That's just how it goes. You're going to have to at some point if you want to get access to any of the newer games that are coming out. And probably as we go on, you know, people are going to start upgrading to PS5 and Xbox Series S way more than they were before. And then some of those players will come over because, of course, that is a major issue. There are a lot of people that are still on Xbox One and PS4 that can play Smite 1, but they can't play Smite 2. And so, yeah, free-to-play and last-gen console upgrades and that kind of stuff will probably help out with the player base a lot, which relates to another one of Smite 2's biggest issues right now, which is the matchmaking. And while they can make progress by improving on the algorithms and making tweaks and stuff like that, a larger player base than 2,000 is going to be necessary to have good matchmaking, and that's one of the biggest issues with the game right now. You know, there can be so many gods in the game, there can be so much content in the game, the core game feel can be so good, the game can be flashy, the game can look nice, the game could be all of those things, but if the matchmaking is bad, the game is bad. It's really that crucial. And honestly, in this regard, I have been seeing improvement as well. It's not been as rapid as, for example, like with the gods. You know, the god roster improvement has been honestly astronomical. I've been having a lot of fun, and there's a lot more variety now with the gods in the game. Matchmaking has been a little bit slower, but again, that is probably because we're kind of, you know, on free-to-play launch. I imagine a lot more players are going to come in and it will achieve peak player numbers much higher, like consistently than it is right now, because there is probably a lot of people waiting for free-to-play, as I've said. But yeah, the matchmaking in the game is a real big issue. It's been getting better, especially with the algorithm improvements. You know, we've not really seen any increase in player numbers, but I have been getting substantially better matchmaking. It could be placebo, but I don't think it is. I think I genuinely have been getting better games over like the last month or two, and especially the last couple of weeks I've definitely noticed an improvement. So that will be the, you know, algorithms that they're implementing, you know, limiting team spread of MMR. Role assignment has been absolutely huge as well. That's something I forgot to mention. Role assignment in Smite 2 is already light years better than Smite 1. That's one of the aspects of the game that is really, really good. I'm very, very rarely getting my 4th and 5th pick role. You know, I'm almost always getting 1st and 2nd and very occasionally getting 3rd. And so that's really good. You know, if you're getting the role you want to play more often, you're going to have more fun with the game. Everyone's going to have more fun with the game because you're not going to have some random guy that either doesn't want support and trolls the game, or like is bad at ADC but gets put in it and throws the game unintentionally. You're just going to get a lot less of that with good role assignment, and that's been a real big improvement in my opinion in terms of matchmaking. But yeah, as I said, the player numbers are still small. We're kind of waiting on free-to-play to get those up a little bit, and a larger player base is the biggest thing that will improve matchmaking. If you've got more people to pick from, you're going to be able to make better games. That's just simply how it is. And yeah, in regards to the player numbers, content interest is kind of the same story. Like, the only videos that are getting views right now on Smite 2 are basically just like update news and gameplay when new patches drop. And it's not really worth the effort, at least for me, to be making like highly edited, you know, conquest role guides and stuff like that, and other informational content for the game, because they do worse than just like a standard news or gameplay video, which take a way less effort. And while I do still love making those videos, I do still love seeing the comments of people saying it helped them out and stuff like that, and I do still plan to make those videos. I've already made a full conquest guide for Smite 2, and likely by the time we get free to play and there's going to be a little bit more interest in that content, I'll be making role guides and other stuff like that, build guides. But just at the current moment, there really isn't enough interest in that kind of content when it takes, you know, 5 to 10 times as long to make one of those videos as it does to make a news video or a gameplay video, and then using gameplay videos will do better. So yeah, just for me right now, making those kind of guides and stuff like that really isn't viable. But yeah, with that said, I'm not going anywhere. That's not what this video is. I think the game is great right now. I'm personally having a blast playing Smite 2, and I will keep making videos. I will keep streaming it. I will keep doing all of that stuff. It's the game I have the most passion for, creating content for. So yeah, don't worry about that. I'll always be here. Well, maybe not always, but for the foreseeable future, I will be here creating Smite content. It's what I love doing. But yeah, I just thought I would get my thoughts out on the game in a little bit more of a long form sort of ramble daily format. As I said earlier in the video, check out my Twitch if you want to like ask me any questions about the game and get more direct thoughts on like specific issues or whatever. I'll leave the link to my Twitch down below. But yeah, definitely drop a comment with your own thoughts on how you feel the game is right now. Are you playing it? Are you not playing it? What are the reasons why you're playing it and not playing it? I'm very interested in the community opinion on it right now because I think the game is in a really good state, but the player numbers just aren't really rising. And it probably is an issue of like people have just checked out of the game and are waiting for free to play. But yeah, let me know down below and I will catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day and peace out, you nerds.